I want to ask you something before we start. Have you ever been completely alone somewhere at night and felt, not thought, felt, that something outside already knew that? That's what this is about. And by the time this story ends, you're going to understand exactly what I mean. But I was 21 years old when this happened, 2017, and I need you to understand something about who I was at that point in my life, because it matters for what I'm about to tell you. I was not a nervous person. I was not the kind of person who startled easily or read danger into situations that didn't have any. I was 21, I was cocky, I thought I had a pretty good read in people and situations, and I was working the closing shift alone at a gas station a few towns over from where I lived. One of those jobs you take when you're figuring out what comes next, just until something better shows up, just temporary. That's what I told myself. The day shifts were fine. Annoying the way any retail job is annoying. Ringing up snacks, cigarettes, lottery tickets. But fine. Normal. The night shifts were different. The nights drag in a specific way that day shifts don't. The store felt too bright inside. That particular, fluorescent brightness that makes everything outside look even darker by contrast. Like you're sitting in a lit box in the middle of nothing, visible to everything outside, while you can see almost nothing back. Every customer who came in at night felt a little stranger than they would have in daylight. I always told myself that was just the atmosphere of the place, the hours, the isolation. I told myself that right up until the night, I stopped being able to tell myself anything. Like at near, it was a closing shift, just me. The store closed at midnight. Around 9 p.m., the phone rang. I want to be clear about something. Gas station phones ring at night. It's not unusual, it's not alarming. People call to check hours, to ask about a pump that isn't working, to ask if you have a specific product. Normal calls. This was not a normal call. The second I picked up, I heard the voice, low, drawn out, deliberate. Like someone doing an impression of a killer from a horror movie, that forced theatrical quality, but underneath the performance, something real that I didn't register consciously until later. The voice asked, "Are you all alone in the store?" I'm 21. I'm cocky. I've seen Scream. I said something sarcastic. "Yeah, you got me." And I hung up. Immediately texted the group chat. "Which one of you is calling the store pretending to be a serial killer?" They all found it funny. They all acted confused. They all denied it. One said he was at home. One said he was with his girlfriend. Another sent a photo from his basement. I assumed they were covering. I assumed it was a prank. I assumed that for longer than I should have. 10 minutes later, the phone rang again. Same voice. "Why did you hang up?" I said. "All right, you got me." Starting to feel the edge of something. Not fear yet. Just that very first signal your body sends you when something isn't quite what it's presenting itself as. The voice laughed. And this is the part I remember most clearly from that second call. The laugh didn't sound playful. It didn't sound like someone enjoying a prank. It sounded like someone who had just been told something useful. Then the voice said, "I shouldn't be rude to people who know where I am." I hung up. Sit with that line for a second. Not, "I know where you are." Not a threat. Not obvious. I shouldn't be rude to people who know where I am. Meaning, you know where I am. Meaning, I'm somewhere you can identify. Meaning, I'm close enough that my location is relevant to this conversation. I didn't process it that clearly in the moment. But my body did. That heavy feeling started then. Low. In the stomach. The kind your body produces when it knows something your brain hasn't admitted yet. And my customers were still coming in. Gas, beer, lottery tickets. Normal people doing normal things. I used them as an excuse not to think about the call. But every time the store emptied out, I looked at the phone. Third call. 10:40 p.m., I answered. I shouldn't have. The voice asked, "Does it always get this quiet this late?" Stop. Does it always get this quiet this late? He wasn't guessing that the store was quiet. He wasn't making generic small talk. He was describing the store. Right then, in real time, he could see it was quiet. He was watching, from somewhere close enough to see through the windows. Close enough to know exactly what was happening inside that lit box I was sitting in, while I could see nothing outside. I hung up, and this time I didn't feel annoyed. I texted my friends more seriously now. Told them it was getting old, asked directly who was doing it, messaged them one by one. One was with his girlfriend, sent me her contact to verify. One sent a photo with a timestamp. One was at a friend's house 25 minutes away. None of them were outside my gas station. And whoever was in that phone had just told me they could see inside. The calls started coming faster after that. 5 calls. 6. I stopped answering. I would watch the phone ring and just stand there counting the rings, knowing that whatever was out there was also watching the store, watching me not answer, and calling again anyway. Not frustrated, not giving up. Just a patient, like someone who wasn't in a hurry, like someone who had already decided how this night was going to end and was simply passing the time until it did. I started checking the cameras. The store had several outside, a few covering the pumps, one covering the entrance, one covering the alley area where the dumpster was. The picture quality at night was exactly what you'd expect from a gas station that wasn't paying for premium security. Grainy, high contrast, full of shadows that could be anything. There was a small patch of woods behind one side of the building. I kept flipping through the camera feeds, half expecting to catch one of my friends crouched outside laughing. The cameras showed me nothing. And that was almost worse because nothing didn't mean nobody. Nothing meant nobody visible. Then I started hearing things outside. A tap somewhere along the wall, a scraping sound near the side of the building, the kind of sound a shoe makes when it drags across concrete. Then something near the back, loose gravel compressing under weight. I stood behind the counter and told myself it was nothing. I told myself that 3 times. By the 3rd time, I didn't believe it anymore. One of my friends called me on his normal number. I told him what was happening in full. He went quiet for a second. Then he said, "Lock the door early if you have to." Something about the way he said it. Not dismissively, but carefully. Like someone choosing their words because they didn't want to say what they were actually thinking. That stayed with me. I didn't lock the door yet. Part of me still needed to believe I was overreacting. 11:40 p.m. The door opened. The sound of it made me flinch in a way I'm still slightly embarrassed about. I looked up. A man, late 20s, maybe 30s. Nothing obviously wrong with how he looked. Not dirty, not disheveled, not dressed strangely. Just a blank expression, no greeting, no acknowledgement. He walked straight in and moved into the aisles. I watched him in the cameras while pretending to do other things. He moved through the aisles without purpose, drifting from one to another, stopping, then moving again. The way someone moves when they're not actually looking for anything. More than once. I watched on the monitor as the top half of his face appeared above the shelf line, looking toward the counter. Not browsing. Not checking a price. Looking at me. Checking on me. The way you'd check on something you'd left somewhere and wanted to make sure was still there. He was in the store for 8 or 9 minutes. For a man who bought a bag of chips, he came to the counter without saying a word. I scanned the chips, didn't say anything either. For 1 second, looking down at the register, everything felt completely normal. The mundane mechanics of a transaction. Item scanned, total shown, payment made. Then I looked up. He was staring directly into my eyes. 2 seconds. I know that doesn't sound long. Count it out. 1, 2. While someone with no expression holds your gaze and gives you nothing back. No warmth, no hostility, no recognition. Just looks at you, the way you'd look at a door you were deciding whether to open. Then he looked down. Paid. I handed him the bag. He turned and walked toward the exit. And for just a moment, one small moment, I thought it was over. I thought he was just a strange customer on a strange night and he was leaving, and that was that. He reached the door, pushed it halfway open and stopped. Turned his head back toward me. Not his body, just his head, chin slightly lowered, so his eyes had to angle upward to find mine. And he smiled. I've thought about that smile many times since that night, trying to find the right way to describe it. The closest I can get is this: it was the smile of someone who knew exactly how it looked, who had chosen it the way you choose what to wear, deliberately, because they knew the effect it would have, and they wanted that effect. It wasn't a threat, it wasn't rage, it was something quieter than both of those, something patient, something that said, I know something about tonight that you don't yet. He stepped outside, and instead of walking toward a car, instead of walking toward the pumps, he walked around the side of the building, eyes still on me through the glass, smile still there. He walked until the angle cut him off. I moved to the cameras. I watched him round the building on the monitor, watched him head toward the side where the woods were, watched him reach the edge of the camera's range and disappear into the blind spot. I waited. 10 seconds, 20, a full minute he didn't come back out. Now I want you to think about what that means. A man walks into a store, buys one item after 9 minutes of moving through the aisles and watching the cashier, holds eye contact at the counter for 2 full seconds with no expression, smiles at the door in a way that was chosen, and then walks around the side of the building, into the woods, and doesn't come back out. Where did he go? There was no car, no one waiting, no reason to be in those woods at 11:40 p.m. He went to the same place the sound on the cameras couldn't capture, the same blind spot where someone standing could see through the gas station windows clearly, while remaining invisible to everything inside. I locked the door. I texted everyone in my contacts, not the group chat, everyone. I said there was a man outside and I was not joking, and if I stopped responding that meant something had happened. I sent that text at 11:47 p.m. I want you to think about what it takes for a 21-year-old who considers himself pretty unshakable to send that exact text. I rushed through the closing checklist, barely cleaned anything, checked the cameras every 30 seconds. The blind spot stayed a blind spot. Nothing came back into frame. Midnight. I grabbed my things, walked to the front door, and stood there for a moment, because on the other side of that door, somewhere on the property, was a man who had walked into the woods and not come out, and I had to cross a parking lot to reach my car. I unlocked the door, stepped out, relocked it behind me, fingers shaking, each second of standing with my back to that parking lot lasting longer than it should have. Then I ran, not jogged, ran toward my car parked on the side of the building. I got most of the way there, and then I heard footsteps. Not running. That's the part that has stayed with me longer than anything else. Not running. Speed walking. Fast, deliberate steps. Slapping the pavement. Rhythmic. Purposeful. Coming from the front corner of the building. I turned. It was him. Moving toward me in my car, fast, with that same expression, or rather that same absence of expression. The blank face of someone executing a plan. I don't remember making any decision. My body made it for me. Car door open, inside, door locked. Engine running. All of it in under 4 seconds. I reversed out of that lot faster than I have driven before or since. I looked once in the mirror. He was standing in the lot lights, watching me leave. Not chasing, not moving. Just watching. Still. Patient. The whole drive home, I sent voice texts to everyone. My hands were shaking too much to type. I said, I was right, I knew it. He came out of nowhere when I left. The next day, I told my boss everything. In detail. In order. Without leaving anything out. He reviewed the footage. And then he said, the guy looked like a regular customer. He said maybe, The phone calls had gotten to me, and I'd connected things that weren't connected. Here is what I want you to understand about that response. The footage could not show what the store felt like at 11 p.m. with calls coming in every 2 minutes from someone who was describing what was happening inside the building in real time. The footage could not show the quality of that stare at the counter. The footage could not show what it felt like to watch a man walk into the woods at midnight and never come back out, and then hear footsteps coming from that exact direction the second you stepped outside. The footage showed a customer buying chips. I was there. I know what it was. I quit the next day. Didn't argue, didn't negotiate. Just told him if he thought that was normal. He could work the closing shift himself. My guy and dumber, I have thought about that night many times in the years since. And here's what I keep coming back to. The caller never said my name. He never made an explicit threat. He never did anything that would show up clearly on a police report as criminal. He was too smart for that. Every call was just a question, innocent on its own. Are you all alone? Why did you hang up? Does it always get this quiet this late? And the man in the store, he bought chips. He paid. He left. Innocent on its own. But what wasn't innocent was the combination. The calls that described the inside of the store from someone watching through the windows. The man who spent 9 minutes watching me from above the shelves. The wood she disappeared into. The blind spot that covered the exact window you'd stand at to watch the counter without being seen. The footsteps that came from that direction. The moment I stepped outside. None of it was random. All of it was coordinated. And whoever did it knew exactly how to stay on the right side of a line that I had no way to prove he'd crossed. I still believe the caller and the man who came into the store were the same person. I can't prove it. But I was there. I felt how the night moved. And I know the difference between a series of coincidences and a plant that didn't finish the way it was supposed to. What stopped it? I don't know exactly. Maybe I left fast enough. Maybe locking the door early changed the timing. Maybe sending those texts, telling people what was happening and where I was. Maybe that mattered. Or maybe he just decided tonight wasn't the night. And if that's true, that's the part that stays with me most. Not what happened, what almost did. If you work a closing shift alone, anywhere, listen to the thing your body tells you before your brain talks you out of it. Lock the door early. Tell someone what's happening and where you are. Don't convince yourself you're overreacting. Because the people who do this, the ones who call ahead, who watch through windows, who time their visits, who know your blind spots before you do, they count on you talking yourself out of the feeling. That's the gap they work in. The space between what you feel and what you're willing to believe. Don't give them that space. I got out of that parking lot. Not everyone does.